General quarters, all hands man your battle stations.
This is William K. Murtaugh, Mert Witness 1, and today my subject is battle stations. Now, I became aware recently of a little bit of a battle that's going on Timothy Charles Holmes's Facebook page. And the battle had actually started the day before when Randy Q. Erickson put up all this public information on a Chad Cater. Now, Chad Cater was an individual that used to be a close supporter, if not friend, of Timothy Charles Homestead. He lived in a town close to Timothy, and on the day Timothy decided to become a fugitive from justice, Chad stored his Tim Homestead's property and car at his place. Now, at some point, people filled Timothy's head with the false accusation that Chad Cater had betrayed him and given out details about where Tim was at the time and how he got there. I checked multiple sources and found that Tim Holmes's accusations were false. Chad Cater did not know enough information, number one, to be certain of where Tim was, and number two, if he had known, he wouldn't have told. He was that loyal. So it turned out that it was Tim that betrayed his friend rather than the reverse. Tim went on to do a scathing video accusing Chad of this conduct and expressing his anger at him for doing so. After a while, everybody had moved on, and I had thought that this had been forgotten about. But yesterday proved me wrong. For there seems to have been a battle going on under the surface for quite some time. And it's alleged that Randy Q. Erickson has been at the forefront of this little battle. On her webpage, she has been posting information about Chad Cater. She's allowed derogatory comments about Chad Cater to be posted there. This is an alleged retaliation for the false accusation that he had helped Kim Picasio in her quest to find out where Timothy Holmes's was. Now, anybody with any common sense would have known that if Kim Picasio had this information at the time she had it, Tim Homestead would have been in jail. Because it would have been a matter of picking up the phone and calling law enforcement and have them go to where he was suspected of being at and arrest him. But he wasn't there. At least according to what I've been able to find out. Or Chad Cater never told anybody where he was, and so the police had nowhere to look. Now, what Tim did in his criticism of Chad Cater is admit that people were right about guessing where he was. And so did Randy Erickson, for that matter. But when you go through the various comments that were made on the Facebook page by Chad Cater and others, you begin to realize that support for Tim Holmseth is beginning to fall to the wayside. People are finally beginning to realize that the Pentagon Pedophile Task Force does not exist. People are beginning to realize that the government doesn't set up organizations like this. The government is not going to set up a military operation and have civilians run it. Military operations are run by the military. Civilian operations are run by civilian branches of the government. Something like a pedophile task force would be run through the Justice Department. Now, how this idea came about is a few years back when he first came into office, Donald Trump declared that he was going to start efforts to do something about child trafficking, human trafficking, and so forth. And there was a task force formed in the Justice Department. And what this task force does is it coordinates between the United States government and various law enforcement agencies to deal with this problem. And Timothy Charles Holmseth has nothing to do with that agency. It's basically a cooperative between law enforcement, the Trump administration, and various respected organizations that have been fighting the problem of human trafficking and child trafficking for years. The Pentagon Pedophile Task Force is a fantasy. It's something that Timothy Holmseth made up. He saw when the news of this organization that Donald Trump had advocated and directed be created, and decided to create the Pentagon Pedophile Task Force. It may have been a joint collaboration between Tim Holmseth and Phil McConnell, because Phil McConnell pushes this organization equally as much as this Children's Crusade organization. He combined them. And it's for one purpose and one purpose only. It's a fraud to garner money. That's all it's ever been about. Now, Holmseth may not have been so much about the money as the fact that he wants attention. And so these organizations came about. The only problem is that people are now beginning to get wise. And this is what Chad Cater got into. Chad Cater recognized that there are people around Tim Holmseth controlling him and have steered him down this road. And other people are beginning to realize it. There's people on the Facebook of Tim Holmseth that are starting to demand their money back. They realize that they basically have thrown their money down a rabbit hole. And unfortunately, the chances of them getting their money back are zero, because the money was spent almost as fast as it was collected. So, people are learning a hard lesson, one person at a time here. And that lesson is that you need to do your homework before getting involved with these advocacy groups. You need to do your homework to find out if they are actually doing some good, or if they are doing nothing more than taking current events in the news and twisting events to their own narrative for the sole purpose of collecting money. Now, another unfortunate collateral damage, I suppose you could see in this, is Timothy's daughter. Now, Timothy doesn't seem to understand that his actions affect not only himself, but his family and those around him. The situation with Chad Cater should have been enough, but unfortunately, the daughter has been drawn into this. Now, the daughter more or less supports Timothy. She's his daughter, and a daughter will support a father stronger than someone outside the family network would. But unfortunately, she's been drawn into the fight, and she herself has suffered for it undeservedly. There's people that are attacking her and her family. I don't agree with that. I never have. Timothy's daughter only supports her father. But Timothy's daughter really should not be in the center of all this. She should be left alone, and her children should be left alone. But unfortunately, that's the reality of the internet. If you get involved in things like what Timothy Holmseth gets involved in, there's going to be a price to pay. And she's paying it. And Tim Holmseth is not seeing that. He's not seeing the effect this is having on his daughter and her children, who are going to have to live with what Timothy Charles Holmseth is doing and has been doing the rest of their lives. Because the internet's forever. This is going to be around forever. When Timothy Holmseth's kids grow up, or I should say one child, he only has a son left, his daughter's an adult. Timothy Charles Holmseth's son is going to know all this. And so will Timothy Charles Holmseth's grandchildren. As these children grow up, get access to the internet, and they want to know what their grandfather's all about, they're going to read all this stuff. And they're going to read about all this stuff after everything has come out. All the truth has come out. All the subsequent actions come out over the years. And they're going to realize what kind of a man their grandfather was and the harm he did to society as a whole. And that's unfortunate. But it's unfortunate because Tim Holmseth doesn't think about the ramifications of something like that. He doesn't think about the fact that what he does affects his family and those that used to be his friends. In this moment, we are at a turning point where Timothy's fortunes are starting to wane. One person at a time, support for Tim Holmseth is going to diminish. As more revelations come out, as his legal situation deteriorates, and more importantly, when the federal investigation that is rumored to be going on progresses and leads to Timothy Charles Holmseth's possible arrest at the federal level instead of the state level. Timothy Charles Holmseth's troubles are far from over. They've only just begun. 2020 is going to see the year of accountability for Timothy Charles Holmseth and a number of other people. As the legal wheels turn and the reputation of certain people start to be declined because of their actions, and other factors start to kick in, that is going to make it a tough year for quite a number of people. So until then, this is William K. Murtaugh, Mert Witness 1. Have a good one.